All right, so I don't know who would be able to relate to this type of video, but if you are somebody who's into spirituality, maybe you're somebody who receives messages from the unknown and you can't really explain certain things to people because it sounds so up in the air. This may be the video for you because I know I'm not the only one that goes through this stuff. And unfortunately, since I don't have a mentor, I have to learn things as I go along. And I find the best teachers are usually the ones who didn't really have a mentor, so they had to learn things as they go along. So when it comes to the spiritual journey, it's like you may come across some messages or like spirit is leading you to something and you don't know why. Um, and you can't really explain yourself, but there's other people out there who experience the same thing, and hopefully my story might just help you out a bit. When it comes to the spiritual journey, right, it can be a little fuzzy because you can't foresee the next like path down the road, right? So you really have to follow intuition and trust certain things. And like I said, it could be kind of confusing. You may not have nobody to really talk to about this because ain't nobody really going to understand you because it's your own personal journey, right? And for me, I find that this past year has been such a like a reflection. So I'm gonna start from like the top when I started making videos again on YouTube. So, like over a year ago, I was talking about certain things that is kind of unfolding right now in current events as far as like Islam taking over. And I understand not every Muslim, yes, I am taking it there, but not every Muslim is, an extremist, but there are some Muslims who want to take over the world and everybody follow the Quran and Islam and all this other stuff, right? So, and if you haven't been paying attention to the news or anything, it's like it's the most one of the most talked about things, like Sharia law and whatever, right? Strangely enough, over a year ago, I started talking about certain things. Like one of my videos I spoke about was this video that I had posted, and I was talking about the collective freedom in the United States and what it means to be free and having responsibility and freedom, and how we don't need to have to follow the laws of the church to live a peaceful life. Because there was somebody that I was talking about who lives in Dubai, a writer, and she says that she likes Dubai because Dubai follows the Quran. There's no separation between church and state, right? And that's the problem with the US. And I disagree with that. We don't have to follow the church in order to live a peaceful life. There's responsibility and freedom, and you have to find a way to not bring chaos into your life. It's all a balance, right? So I was talking about stuff like that. And then also, I've been talking about this book that I've been writing. I already have my first book out. So I have written a darker version of a Cinderella story. And the reason why I made it a Cinderella story because it's my first book that I put out. And I wanted to release something where a lot of people at least understand the concept. Like everybody knows Cinderella, but you can make different versions of a Cinderella story. So for me, I made a darker version of Cinderella, and I incorporate a lot of like philosophies from like the darker side of things and the balance to like good and evil. So I was talking about some of that in some of my videos, and in one of my videos I've spoken about how the way I write, I question religion in my writings. And one of the religions that I put in my book is about Muslims. And the reason why I put this in my book is in the story, there's like a first king of this empire, and he was a fake Muslim because he didn't really want to be Muslim, but he was forced into being Muslim. Um, Otherwise, he would have been killed or enslaved, like some of his neighbors, and so on and so forth. So I had put that in my book, and I have spoken about how I feel about being forced into like religion and stuff like that. And some people who already read my book, my first book, because this is the second book I'm putting out, like a part two of my Cinderella story. So the second book that I was supposed to put out in October last month, it's just about done. But in the second book, I speak more about like the Muslims and the whole takeover and everything. And I had spoken to somebody about this, and he liked the concept, but he told me to be careful because basically, um, there are some Muslims who are extremists, and if they see that you have written, I don't know, like questioning their religion, they start to feel some type of way. Like this one writer who wrote about freedom in his book, and he wrote about like the controversy with like the Muslim religion. And when he went to do an interview in Europe, some Muslim guy went to his like, I guess like the podium or whatever, and stabbed him in the eye. So with all of that being said, it's like in my video where I was talking about that, I mentioned how even though I understand there's consequences and freedom of speech, like I'm still going to put this out there. And as I was talking about this like over a year ago, I had no idea that there was basically an invasion that was coming through, where you have Muslims trying to take over like the UK and here in the US. I had no idea about all of this stuff, but certain things was just coming to me like over the past like year or two. And it's very like it's very eye opening. And I did question myself, like, why the heck have I been receiving these types of messages? And then I realized, like, why not me? So this is what I'm coming to understand, because for me, I'm following my path, and I'm staying true to myself, and I'm choosing to continue to write a certain way that I feel like I'm meant to write as a writer. And by doing that, I feel like when you are living how you're supposed to live, however that is to you, I think spirit sees that, right? And therefore, spirit will give you messages because spirit feels like this is the job for you because you are living your truth. Like for me, since I'm a writer and I write deep stories, and I like to take it there when it comes to like beliefs and life and philosophies and all that stuff and religion and whatnot, right? So because I write like this, it's kind of like, why not spirit send me these type of messages? Because it, he, she, whatever, knows that I am going to put it in my stories. Like I'm going to go forward with publishing this type of work instead of being scared and being like, I'm not putting this out, because I'm still putting all this out. And in one of my other videos, I spoke about automatic writing, like the gift of having like automatic writing. And I have spoken about certain things, like certain things that would come to my mind as I'm writing, and I would hear like a tiny like voice in the back of my head, somewhere in my brain. And at first it tripped me out when I started learning about automatic writing, because at first I was just doing this naturally, and I would type for hours and certain things would come to me, and I'm just like, where's all this coming from? And once I started learning about automatic writing and whatnot, and like really paying attention and hearing that voice, it kind of bugged me out for a second. But, all in all, is like, why not have those messages come to somebody like myself who is walking their truth and will partake on the task of whatever is being like sent to you? If this is all making sense. So like, say like you, whatever path you're on, um and you start getting like messages sent to you, and maybe you're somebody that's just like, wait, what is going on? Like, why me? It's like, why not you? Because you're the one that, you're not distracted, you're living your truth, and therefore spirit will see that and will give you these messages, because it, he, she, whatever, knows that you will like fulfill certain things. You know what I mean? If this is all making sense, it probably sounds very like matrixy like, but it's really starting to click for me, because like over a year ago I was talking about all this stuff, and I had no idea about the current events of like Islam trying to take over. And mind you, I've never been to Islam, but I had no idea that all of this was like coming down the pipes, like as of recent. Also, too, I feel like ancestry plays a part on some of these messages. So for me, recently I found out that I have Sephardic Jew ancestry, and I have spoken about that in a video that I did like a few months back. And with that, I learned that there is some history between the Sephardic Jews and like the Muslims, and the back and forth and Israel and whatnot. And I feel like in a way there's some type of like memory coded in DNA, ancestral memory. So I think some of this is coming up in my writing because of this Sephardic Jew background. So I do feel like ancestry plays a part in like some of the messages that you may receive. So, yeah. Now, a way to like really tap into your path, maybe you are kind of confused on what your path is if you're somebody who doesn't really know. Um this past year, I swear, like the reason why I didn't put out my second book just yet is because I have been taking a step back to understand what is going on with my path, my life, and why is certain things happening, like the story that I just told you. And certain things that helped me out was astrology. I swear, don't just look at your sun sign, right? So I'm a Pisces. And when I looked into my astrology, when I first came around astrology, I had gotten a astrology reading in Salem, Massachusetts, and this lady was breaking down my whole chart, and I was pretty amazed because of how accurate it was. But I didn't, when I got back home, I didn't really like study up on astrology until like maybe a few months later. And then everything just started unfolding. So if I was you, I would study like your natal chart, not just your sun, but your rising sign, your moon sign, um, the houses, the planets that's in the houses, the degrees and all that stuff. It'll take you maybe like a couple of months to like really understand it all. Um, but I will look into your natal chart. Also, this is a message that came to me when I was trying to figure it all out. I was in the shower, and a lot of times messages will come to you when you're like in the shower because like the whole cleansing and everything. But when you quiet your mind and you kind of like are seeking for answers, messages will come to you. So a voice in my head told me to read my palm. And I'm like, I don't know how to read palms. Like, that's so strange. So I started reading this book, um, palm reading, and yeah, the art and science of hand reading. And the things that I discovered on my hand, like what all these lines mean, and the karmic stuff, and the spirits who like watch over me, like all of that is in the palm of your hands. Um, so I will look into that. Also, something else that I recently started looking into is human design. And that's another topic in itself. Human design is like astrology, but on steroids, because you're blending astrology, you're blending like the Chinese system, like the chakras and everything else, like in science, you're blending all of this together into one aspect of yourself, what makes you you. So I would get into astrology first, and then like palm reading, and then human design. This is like very, very, very advanced. And there's more tools that you can use to help understand yourself, but these right here, it helped me a lot so far this past year. And once you figure it out and come to an understanding of who you are and what you need to do, it becomes more clear of why not you, why not spirit have you receive these certain messages, because they're for you for a reason. But yes, I hope I explained this really well and made it really simple, and what tools you can use to help you out, because I can talk in riddles, and certain topics like this can be very deep. And for me, is it's a little bit of a challenge to speak and make it very simple, because my mind is like very vast, very very out there and all over the place. And I blame it on my Mercury in Aquarius retrograde. So that's that. But that's all I have for this video. I hope that this resonates with whoever's watching, whoever is trying to follow their path. Maybe that is you. Maybe you're somebody who receives messages and doesn't understand why all this is happening to you. But just remember, why not you? It's coming to you for a reason. So, with that being said, I hope this helps.